Welcome to Area DMG.
Welcome back to Area DMG. I'm your host, Philip Wesley, the Mile High Mouth, and I'm probably the last person to talk about the Nintendo Switch Lite. But I'm the person who matters in this one, okay? So let's talk about it. Is there going to be another handheld family video? Yeah. Of course there is. There's a new Switch coming out. Of course, the Switch is a handheld system. The new system removes the ability to dock the Nintendo Switch, as well as some other features for making it slightly smaller and all one factor, as well as, reducing the price a little bit. So, September 20th, 2019, same day that Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening comes out on the Nintendo Switch, they're releasing the Nintendo Switch Lite. The Nintendo Switch Lite will begin turquoise, which is kind of a blue, yellow, which is kind of a yellow, and then gray, I guess, which is kind of a drab. And then there's a version of it that's coming out that's silver with like blue buttons on one side and red buttons on the other for the Pokemon Sword and Shield. Now, that's kind of cool. I'm actually interested in the yellow one, mainly because that's one of my favorite colors, and it's kind of cool to see that. I like these kind of bright electronics. The big differences between the new Nintendo Switch Lite and the old Nintendo Switch is that the Nintendo Switch Lite does not feature removable Joy-Cons. The Joy-Cons are built into it. It's kind of like some of those cases that you could buy for the Nintendo Switch that encase everything in it, so that you can't really remove it. You can just kind of plop them into that case, and then they don't really shift around. Because of that, you also can't dock it. It also has a slightly smaller screen, and it's a little bit shorter. So it's actually closer to this. This is the Bionic. This is a pad for charging controllers, and it's got a little thing here on the top so you can charge your Nintendo Switch with it. But the funny thing about it is it's actually about as long as the Nintendo Switch Mini will be. It's just slightly, I guess the best way to put it is that it's slightly taller. The Nintendo Switch is just a little sleeker. And the Nintendo Switch Lite also does away with these buttons here in favor of a D-pad. So you're going to have a D-pad on it along with these buttons. And they move these a little closer to the bottom of it. One thing I find kind of interesting is that this little home button lights up on the Nintendo Switch. It lights up in green and blue and other stuff, right? Now, originally I was hoping that would be for some kind of StreetPass type thing, some kind of near-field communication between other systems, not NFC stuff, but actual, kind of like StreetPass. And looking at the Nintendo Switch Lite, considering that it still has that ring around it, it looks like that's what they're going to do. Once that system is launched, you're going to start seeing some games that will communicate with other systems. In other words, imagine you're walking through, say, the mall, and there's other people around you that have a Nintendo Switch Lite that's in sleep mode. And then suddenly, you pull out your Nintendo Switch Lite, the little home button is lit up blue or green, because apparently it does other colors, and then you tap that button, and guess what? You've got brand new levels that were shared to you from Super Mario Maker 2, or new items in Animal Crossing. That's interesting. Anyway, some other things I noticed about the device that they showed. Aside from, it does have a gyroscope in here. I watched a thing with Austin John Plays or whatnot, and guy was like, well, it doesn't have an accelerometer because that's in the Joy-Cons. Yes, but it's also in the tablet system itself. That's how Labo VR works without those. I know I've been playing a lot of virtual reality Legend of Zelda. Breath of the Wild, which I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this. I actually have 4 accounts on this one right here, so one of my accounts was a spare account that I had for the Nintendo 3DS and then the Nintendo 2DS. So it's kind of nice to have another use for that one again. We'll see how that works out. Anyways, the actual thickness for the device is actually, you're looking at something that's about yay long, but yay thick. And then you have a slightly smaller screen. The smaller screen 720p, which I actually don't expect that spec to change in the future. I expect Nintendo to continue to put out versions of Nintendo Switch in the same family that still have a 720p screen in handheld, because it's actually just fine. And it's kind of funny because the 720p screen that's on the Nintendo Switch Lite reminds me a bit of the screen that was on, say, the Nintendo Game Boy Micro. Sort of. It's not like flat, washed out kind of, but it's actually sharper because you have more pixels per inch, essentially. There's this thing we call PPI. Now, with the Game Boy Advance, you have a certain set, and then you have the DS, which had a certain set. And the Game Boy Micro, despite being a smaller device, had a higher PPI than the other systems. Meaning that even though something was like tiny, it was still pretty clear and readable. Let's bring that in there. See? So what you're going to have is a slightly sharper Nintendo Switch screen. By virtue of it being slightly smaller, it's going to be slightly smaller, but same type of resolution. What's interesting too is that this one, the new Nintendo Switch Lite, the Nintendo Switch Lite is also using a slightly different chipset. Now, it could still technically scale, but it's using a little bit less energy, a little less power and such. It's not taxing itself as much. So, I mean, you're not going to get suddenly better frame rates or whatnot. I expect to see something like that in like a Switch Pro. But it's interesting to look at it and say, hey, this little device is going to be marketing for $199.99, $200, on September 20th, same day as Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, of this year, in 3 colors, tan, blue, or rather turquoise, and yellow, with its own built-in D-pad, no rumble, mind you, no HD rumble, sorry, no detachable, like, no IR camera, sorry, and no detachable Joy-Cons. I mean, I'll have like a little picture or something of it here so you can see what it looks like. I think it's going to be neat. I can't wait to get a hold of one because, like, frankly, hey, we're going to update the Nintendo handheld family of games. We're going to go from, say, the Game & Watch to the Nintendo Switch Lite. So, yeah, it's kind of nice to see Nintendo double down on the handheld portion of the Nintendo Switch. Kind of like, hey, here's these games. You can take these games and you can even play them on your TV later on or whatnot. Well, but not with the Switch Lite, with the original Switch. I do find that kind of interesting. It doesn't look like the batteries are removable, of course, and it looks like they might have built it from better, more sturdy plastic, because the original plastic for the Nintendo Switch has a tendency to warp a bit. There's some issues with it when it comes to power, where it heats and it warps, or it gets brittle. Yeah, I mean, people have had to change out the casings for their Nintendo Switch because of that. Luckily, the back casing is not too hard to replace. But yeah, the new Nintendo Switch Lite, the bottom part has a, well, this is not it, but the bottom part is where the USB-C thing would plug in, right? And then you have the, since there's no kickstand, there's a little thing here that you open up and put an SD card in, SDHC card. And then on top you got a vent, power, volume, and then a memory card. Sorry, the game card slot would be right here. So kind of like the reverse of this. But yeah, something similar to the Bionic thing. I'm like, alright, but just slightly thinner. So about this much thinner, right? Yeah. Which is actually kind of cool. I think it's going to be a neat little device. It'll be interesting to see how well it sells. I think the big thing for it is Pokemon is kind of their big push for it. It's also a cheaper system. It's going to be discounted a few times. You know that during those things you'd be like, Nintendo Switch Lite, $175 at Best Buy for Black Friday or whatnot. And hey, maybe we'll get some other colors for that, like a Target red one or so. I mean, red's a pretty regal color. I'm liking that yellow though. Oh man, I look at that and I'm like, oh, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. Now, one thing I find kind of interesting about it though is taking a look at some of the pictures from it and gleaning the information from that. Of course, there's no dock, but the way the system is designed on the bottom, this is still going to work. You know this? I've got two of them. Long story. Not really long. What happened was I thought I lost one. So I was like, shoot, I'm going to have to go buy another. This is amazing. But yeah, it looks like the new Nintendo Switch Lite still has that little groove. And looks to be about the same thick. It looks to be the same thickness. So guess what? This will work, or should work, with the Nintendo Switch Lite, which is actually really good news. This is so that you can dock it without. I mean, this is a dock for if you want to play stuff in tabletop. Which, by the way, the Nintendo Switch Lite will still support the detachable Joy-Cons. You just can't attach them to the system. So your NES Joy-Cons will work. If you have, like, say, the 8-bit DOE adapter, that'll still work. Your Pro controllers will still work. It's got USB-C, and you can attach controllers to it. So you can be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna, for some reason, attach a. I'm going to attach this gigantic fight stick to my Nintendo Switch Lite. So you can still do that. Now, it does kind of cut down on the ability to, you know, pass another gamepad around. But you know what? If you're in the habit of carrying extra controllers with you already, which some of us do, that's not a bad thing. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest. I carry this controller around because I like having a D-pad that I can just be like, oh, I need a D-pad, good. And most of the time I've been playing with that Power A controller, that white one I unboxed that's got Zelda on it. So I'm kind of used to missing HD Rumble. Oh no. Also, the new system's a lot more compact. I do like that. Screen should be interesting, and the cool thing is going to be comparing games on both systems. Be like, okay, here's, say, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild running on the Nintendo Switch. Here's Breath of the Wild running on the Nintendo Switch Mini. That type of thing. So, oof, lots of content. Yes! Yes, that's going to be pretty good. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to remaking that video. That should be fun. And we'll start working on trying to make it less than an hour. I can't promise anything because like I thought it wasn't going to be an hour something, but it was. That happened. Oh, that happened. But I am looking forward to the fact that yeah, it's another one with a touchscreen, and I think it's gonna be fun to play a lot of other games on this system. Oh, by the way, this is a stylus that I purchased specifically for Super Mario Maker and games like that require a stylus. So this will be interesting to see how that works. Remember, lots of stuff works on this. One thing I find kind of amusing about the new one is that it's going to be, well, let's talk about how games that it's going to benefit quite a bit. Now, there are some games that aren't going to work on it properly without an extra controller. For example, Little Inferno. But games and products like, say, Hulu or Enki-Pin or YouTube or whatnot, that smaller screen, slightly sharper because it's smaller. It's the same resolution, but it is slightly sharper due to its size. And that's going to be great for, say, games like different visual novels and stuff. Or it's just, I'm looking forward to testing out that D-pad. That's going to be fun. Now, I don't expect them. In a perfect world, all D-pads would have micro switches in them. But that's just the way it is. But yeah, so many controller options will still work with the Nintendo Switch Lite, and that'll be great. In fact, if you're picking up a Nintendo Switch Lite, gosh, there's so many games you need to pick up for it. I mean, right away, you should pick up the Sega Genesis Classics game for the Nintendo Switch. Just like, come on, you know that you want stuff like Sonic with you at all times. But yeah, it's going to have the same 32 gigabytes of space inside, etc. And that's fine. But yeah, that's the Nintendo Switch Lite. I'm going to go ahead and put in some pictures or video so you can see what it looks like. And I'm looking forward to it. Let me know in the comments below what you're looking forward to. And are you going to pick one up? I think it's a pretty decent little deal. I'm looking at it, I'm like, they've got blue, they've got yellow, they've got gray, they've got silver. They need pink, they need white, they need green, they need, they really do need a pink one. I think they really should do a pink and white one. They should definitely do one that's white. White with black buttons, or white with, what if they did like a green one with the white buttons, or, I think a lot of the modding for this is going to be fun too, like those companies that make decals and stuff for the Nintendo Switch, or they modify the way it looks on the outside. That's going to be great. But yeah, we're looking at something that's it's about this thick, this thin, vertically, about this long, and actually this is pretty much the closest one, but you kind of have to ignore like part of that. So yeah, if you're a person who picked up this bionic battery charger, you've kind of got an early look at what the Nintendo Switch Mini is going to be like, because a lot of the earlier stuff where it's saying, it's kind of like the Nintendo Switch, but you're missing a Joy-Con or so, and I'm like, yep, that's about right. So that'll be fun. But yeah, golly, there's so much stuff with this system. I mean, I'm wondering how its Wi-Fi antenna is. I'm looking forward to comparing the specs for it and seeing if they finally use this, which I think they're going to use for StreetPass or something very similar to it. So that's the thing. Hey, and yeah, if you got one of these, from what I can tell, it looks like this will still work on the Nintendo Switch Lite. They didn't actually change the specs around the USB-C. So I'm like, I see what you guys did. And if you need something with a lot more, things to it, it does look like it might be compatible with that Hori charging port one they did. The one that's got 4 USB 3.0 attachments on it. Yeah, that one. That one doesn't connect it to a TV, of course, but it does add extra USB-C ports, which, hey, if you've got extra USB-C adapters, you can still use those on the Switch Mini. So, yeah, you're not going to be missing out on controllers for the most part. So, that's a good thing. Overall, I like it. I do wish there were a Zelda edition, but maybe we'll get a Zelda edition with Breath of the Wild 2, or Legend of Zelda, Rise of the Hidden Kingdom, or whatever they're going to call it. Dawn. I'm thinking it's Dawn of something. I really think it's going to be like Dawn of something. That it's got to be in there. You've got like, I think music and water are going to play a huge role in the upcoming Breath of the Wild sequel. That's going to be interesting. Also, oh man, Link's Awakening is coming out on the same day. It's fantastic. I'm looking forward to just replaying through that again. I'm actually pleasantly surprised by how many Game Boy games are now available on this system. I mean, if you have Castlevania, the Castlevania collection, or the Contra collection, you have Operation C, you have Castlevania Adventure 1 and 2. Sadly, you don't have Castlevania Legends, which should have been on there. If you've got the Secret of Mana collection, you've got Final Fantasy Adventure, there's some Game Boy Advance games that were ported over, and then there's all sorts of ports of older Game Boy Advance games like, say, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney and stuff like that. We even have a remake of Blue and Yellow, or rather Pokemon Yellow, blue, green, yellow, red, that type of stuff. They with Pokemon Let's Go. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the new system, and looking forward to seeing what type of accessories are for it. It'll be interesting to see how things look on it in comparison to the original. It'll be good. It'll be like going from, say, the Nintendo 3DS XL to the Nintendo 3DS, or say the new 3DS XL to the new 3DS, with this one being the new 3DS XL and this being kind of like the new 3DS. Slightly smaller, sharper screen, but the same resolution. And I hope that they really do give us some games that are just... I mean, there are some games on the Nintendo Switch right now that are handheld only and won't work in docked mode, and that's fine. With the way my system is set up right now, Hulu and YouTube don't like being docked in my system, and that's because of how it's hooked up and what it's hooked up to. But yeah, that's it'll be interesting to see what they do with this. I'm looking forward to it. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that share button. Ring that little bell so you're notified. And whenever we have a brand new video. And until the next video comes out, you are now caught up.
Morning, Maya.